Hey guys, welcome to the 0 Point Podcast, where all meaning is found within the pointless. This is your host, Harvey Drayton. But today I want to talk about this message I got from a friend. And he said, "So you know how you said to let synchronicities happen? I get that. Like I should move with the flow of life and not force anything. But at the same time, you got to work for what you want. How do you find the balance?" And so, that's a very good question. Where is the balance? And this is what I said. I want you to understand explicit and implicit memory. Your explicit memory is the conscious direction of your mind going into your past, which is, your intention. So if you want to enjoy your moment-to-moment experiences, your explicit memory has to be familiar with the attitudes you have throughout your day. And this is actually something pretty easy to keep track of. What you have to do is mentally call out your emotional prejudices as they appear. And the purpose of this basically is that you're going to train the ego to remain in the back seat so that you or your inner self can be confident in the present moment. And this is the thing that actually opens up the channel for manifestation. Okay? So something happens, it pisses you off. This is the moment where you replace that thought and you just realize, I'm only getting fucking angry because it's pulling me back to a way I used to feel. And I don't want to feel like that anymore. This doesn't feel fair. The point of this whole practice, this habit of calling out your emotional prejudices as they happen in a moment, is not to analyze where those prejudices come from. You're going to put yourself in another rabbit hole where you're pitying yourself and you're going to keep wishing that the experiences that had already passed, you're going to wish that they didn't happen that way. And you can't do anything about it. So that's why there's no point in doing that. You can't focus on experiences that have already been. You just have to see how you are now. And it's hard. But what's making it harder is the fact that you keep wanting to rewind those memories in your head with these new thoughts you have as time goes on, because you're holding on to what you supposedly hate so much tighter than before. So when you call out your emotional prejudices, I don't want you to analyze it. It does nothing. You're going to exhaust your ability to overthink. Become familiar with your emotional prejudices. Just call them out as they are in your head and then leave them as is. Eventually, when you do this long enough, your conscious mind will filter out the part of you that wants to keep reliving the negativity. And by doing that, you'll start to remember all the positive experiences that you've had in the past. Those will start to resurface. And that's key to allowing you to forgive yourself. Because when we look back at the past, we always see it like our past has only been negative. But that's not true. Our mind likes to focus on what stands out. So that right there already tells you that you've lived a better life than you thought. Because your mind's only trying to focus on the key moments, which happen to be negative. It's very convenient to filter out the moments that made you happy, because for the most part, your default state was happy. It's just you weren't aware of what it's like to hold on to that happiness, because that fear challenged you to go, are you really happy? Are you sure? And it gives you a little test. But this is internal. The universe isn't actively challenging you to piss you off. You're challenging yourself because you want to hold on to the attitudes you have, or hold a face onto others because you expect them to see you one way. They're not expecting you to be a certain way. You're putting that value on yourself. And that's why it's torture. That's why it's suffering. Because we are the ones that confine ourselves. And we can break out of this by realizing that it's all nonsense. Who am I to say to myself that a friend should see me a certain way? I'm going to be however I am in the moment. I'm not going to waste any time hypothesizing if I'm going to regret it later. You can't regret something later. That's almost a paradox. Where paradoxes are complementary and not contradictory. How am I going to have regret for something that didn't even happen yet? And how am I going to anticipate that regret without me fucking up right now? So what am I doing that's fucking up right now? How about I address that instead of worrying about what could not happen? Because this is the future. Nothing can happen in the future except for what you're doing right now that's influencing it. So it's weird. When you overthink, you put yourself in the stasis. You're in the present moment, but not really. Your physical body's the only thing sitting in the present moment, but your mind's somewhere else. It's crazy how our feet can stay on the ground while our heads are in the clouds, and we aren't even that tall. You can condense those ideas from the clouds. You can do condensation with your mind and pull down the thoughts that you have that you want to manifest physically. You don't have to be in these two extreme states where I have to be super serious. Even the word serious is an illusion. What the fuck are you being serious for? What does that even mean? What does that mean, the tense up in anticipation of something happening? That right there already exposes you as you're not being grounded at all. You being serious is not being grounded. You're actually taking yourself out of the moment, because for you to have a childlike innocence in life, You're exposed to all there is, because everything in the universe is a combination of potential energy mixed with your intentions. Because everything in the universe flows with that same energy, the energy of possibility and choosing which possibility to act on, which creates reality. We all actively do this in every state of our being, and nature does the same thing. We're not special. The difference is we have the awareness to say that tree's doing it, that bush is doing it at the same speed, or perhaps not the same speed. That doesn't really matter. Time is relative. And that's why when that tree punches out of the ground, the tree thinks it's on some NASCAR shit. But to us, we looking at it, and it takes 20, 40 years for it to get to the trees we always see in the forests and so. So, have perspective. Don't let anyone set your own pace. That's probably the number one mistake you could ever make. And that's actually the catalyst for regret. That's why the words, take your time, is like the most relieving thing to hear. Because it's like, hell yeah, I'll take my time because I know what's best. If we didn't have so many self-imposed barriers on our intuition, we would actually have common sense. That's why it's called common sense. It's a collective ability. It's something we all have. And it's not really even something you have to tap into, like a spigot when you're collecting nectar out of a tree. It's something we're just actively remembering. That's why it's called the collective unconscious. Most of the world is asleep. We need them to wake up. But with sleepwalking, you can't wake them up by shaking their head. You can't wake them up by waving your hands over their eyes. They're in a daze. The only way to wake others up is to realize how aware you are. And that will ground you in the moment. So you'll naturally be in a state of providing help when it is needed and nothing more. Because the rest is simply a state of being. So there's no effort. There's no effort. It's almost the same thing as the word try. Either you do something or you don't. It's as simple as that. You are the solution to your own confusion. We create these onion layers for ourselves to figure out because we think it's important. Because it actually is. That's how those things manifested in the first place, in the form of all these headaches we have about thinking how things should go. We have to piece together our own internal puzzles so that when we look back, we can realize that we're all part of the same game. And it's just a matter of self-realization. Because everything outside of us is inside of us. So if you can surrender what no longer brings you happiness, you will heal. And the funny thing about this is that this works both ways. Because as important as it is to piece together our own internal puzzles, it's hard to get an internal perspective without an external reference. So realize that you aren't alone when you're undergoing this self-discovery. This podcast is all about discovering your sense of self through having a poetic perspective on life. By seeing how things just act in the moment, you just know who you be. It's like, that's not proper grammar, but like, fuck it, let's go with it, Because it's not even who you will be. That's the future. It's just be. Things are just is and be. And it's really funny. You have to call out your emotional prejudices in the moment, and your mind will mentally adjust over the negative thoughts you have, and eventually they'll filter themselves out altogether, and you'll be in the present moment. You don't have to worry about it. If you can concentrate always on the present, you will be a happy man. Life will be a party for you, and you will feel alive. That was a quote from The Alchemist by this a camel driver. This boy is on a caravan going from this African city called Tangier to Egypt. And that was what the camel driver said to him. And it resonated with me so much, so I had to write it down. Okay, so we talked about understanding how to get into the flow of life and enjoying your moment-to-moment experiences through understanding explicit memory, which is your pure intention, the core. Your implicit memory is the reason why you don't have to think about how to walk before you do it. Your implicit memory basically wants to maintain its confidence at all times. So we could call this your focus. This is the shell as opposed to the core, which is your explicit memory. I know it sounds a little weird because implicit, you think internal, explicit outside. But for the purpose of how I'm explaining this, your explicit memory is your core, which is why it's expressed outwards. And your implicit memory is your shell because it's what you embrace as impermanent. It's the part that can shed away at the whim of your core because it's what your conscious mind always tries to reference. So if you're trying to figure out how to commit to the process of getting what you want, or how you can embrace the hardships that come with pursuing your idea of success, which, by the way, actually, I want to talk about that, which, what is success? To me, and for my personal definition, success is the safety that comes with knowing that no one can stop you. So I really recommend you to come up with your own definition of success, something that pulls at you, that allows you to keep moving forward at times where you want to doubt yourself, because there's people on the outside who aren't seeing what you're actually doing. And you almost want to believe them because your physical manifestations haven't crystallized yet. But no, you take your time. You stay at your own pace. You always have to believe in yourself no matter what. So what do you do to enjoy doing the work that you have to do to get through life? And it's very simple as well, because everything you want is very simple. The complications form themselves, normally as a result of your overthinking, not the actual me starting and doing what I need to do. But how do you actually enjoy working for what you want in life? How do you commit yourself to the process of going from point A to point B instead of fantasizing what point B looks like before you even started point A? You must immerse your mind with things that give you a sense of direction. Now, this is actually very easy to act on because we have the internet. So if you're always surrounded by things that give you vitality, you don't have a sense of worry or of dying because every day you've been staying in the present moment. You've been living as if every day was your last day. I never really vibed much with that description just because it's like, when you think of your last day of living, you think of desperation. You think of doing all sorts of stupid shit before you leave because, before you clock out, you want to make sure you do things you thought about doing, but then you had societal constraints that, kept you from doing it. Like running around naked in the grocery store and eating all the food. At least that's like one of my dreams. But yeah, there's various ways you can immerse yourself in things that give you a sense of direction. For example, you should always be aware of the media you're consuming. You can have it so that it's entertaining you while at the same time being a representation of something you're striving to achieve. So even if that's a matter of just finding movies that line up with like your path, or playing games that have similar themes of your path, finding new YouTubers that are in the field that you want to be in, things like that. Fill your mind with these type of mediums and you'll naturally manifest what you need in the form of these opportunities that you'll say are coincidence. But really what you're doing is pushing out all the bullshit so that the universe gives you enough room to do what you actually want to do, which is feel whole. The universe actively wants you to succeed. And think about it, like even on an impersonal level, if you're a source, like the very everythingness of the universe, the silence within, you need every teammate to be at its best for the whole team to succeed, right? What makes you any different? Even you act as source in your own life. And those teammates are all the intimate relationships you have, the media you consume, the activities you do, the food you eat in moderation, and the liquids you put in your body. There's no separation between all of this. You are everything, and everything wants to be you. This third dimensional being that can turn the formless into form. Outside of this dimension, souls yearn for that type of experience. That's why the third dimension often is the melting pot for everything that's going to happen for the rest of the dimensions, because we're in the densest form of source, if you want to see it like that. We're the densest form of this reality, where the most change is bound to happen. We need you to be on the top of your game so that everyone's on the top of their game. And if everyone's doing this, we all succeed. Don't act like there's a job scarcity for pursuing your ideas. That's bullshit. That's something you're creating in your head because you don't feel worthy enough to be happy. And let me just tell you, that's the ego talking too damn much. So how about you do it a favor and call that out as an emotional prejudice for thinking you're not worthy enough to achieve what you want. Acknowledge it as it is and move forward. Continue doing whatever the fuck you were doing before that doubt cut you off. Your goal is exclusively unique. It's personal to you and you only. Another thing that's important to take note of, not just the media you're consuming, but also your close relationships. All of your intimate relationships should be taken as a challenge to see how much positive energy you can give to them, independent of their behaviors. How people act should not matter to how you react. They call this Shakti, positive energy. Shakti, Shakti. And by doing this, by challenging yourself, how much positive energy you can give to people, regardless of how they are to you, you will receive so much by the universe for this. This isn't a transactional deal. This is just how the universe naturally functions. And so by being aligned with it, you open yourself up to better opportunities, to better experiences. And finally, after talking about the media you consume and the close relationships you're affiliated with, your worries can be acknowledged instead of pushed aside, as you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of those thoughts. Let me say that again for the people in the back. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of those thoughts. You can't shame yourself for thinking of things that haven't even existed. But what you can do is acknowledge that those worries are pretty valid for them to pop up in your head. So just let them stay as such. You don't have to force your thoughts. You don't have to force your worries down your throat. Just acknowledge they're there and they'll go away naturally. It's when you start thinking that your worries are a problem, like they're going to prevent you from doing something. That's the problem. Because you thinking that your thoughts are an enemy to you, you create an enemy out of them. And that's just how the universe works. We see things as a mirror because all these dimensions function at the same exact time. It's simultaneous. It's normal for you to be frustrated at yourself for reliving the same shit you already know is invalid. But for you to act on those thoughts as if they're real, that's the thing that's your responsibility to handle. Because once you realize that you literally aren't your thoughts, you go out of body. It's like, damn, I realized the creator inside my own head. Because I realized that if I live in my skull, and my perception is based on memories that constantly lie to me, but I can observe that that's happening, my existence doesn't depend on my five senses. It's just simply an observer of them. I realized that I am the one piecing the puzzle together. I'm not actually only the individual pieces. I am the piece that's self-actualizing itself as the puzzle maker. The universe is subconscious, meaning that what you want and manifest will be on autopilot when you realize your focus is creating direction and a directionless space. So that gives you all the freedom to make what you want, because you are what I am. And that is everything. Inner peace should feel natural because we're aiming to reestablish our default state of awareness. Understand that that's just the way we naturally were. Like, humans have always just been. We were just being. But we had separations created after time moved on because we started realizing the implications of our free will. And some more than others felt like they had to impose theirs onto existing ideas. They felt like they had to hold on to specific ideas instead of letting them decay. Because when you got into that mode where you took yourself out of the present moment, you no longer were a part of this flow of reality. You started becoming delusional. You started creating your own reality, thinking that it was separate from what allows any reality to be created. And then you start perceiving yourself as your own God. Not just you are God. You start perceiving yourself as God. You deceive yourself as God. And then you create a hierarchy based on that, and you start telling others that you are the only God. Like Jehovah, or Yahweh, or Allah. All these names. These self-imposed deities that were created off old ideas that got programmed into the collective unconscious. Because when is the mind the most suggestible in hypnosis? It's when you're unconscious, when you're asleep. And the society of sleepers, they have to take down the dreamers because they are the only ones realizing that we are the in-betweeners. We storytell the realities we create because we were the ones that created them, and we want to display it in an artistic way. But then that artistry becomes destroyed by hierarchy, and then it turns into theology. And then science backs away from it, and it creates its own state of mind. And then it forms philosophy. But then it traps people in all these states of mind because they're literally all in a hive, thinking just to be free, they have to study Socrates or Ptolemy. But that's not just all there's meant to be. See, literally you are the seed that's meant to promote how things should be. But the only one who can really know that is neither you or me. Transcend the ego, transcend the protective aspect of yourself, and you'll realize there's nothing to fear. Because when you embrace the impermanence of light, everything you hold becomes dear. So as a quick recap, how do I find the balance between going with the flow of life and working for what I want to get in life? And the answers are simple. Call out your emotional prejudices as they appear, and eventually your ego will go to the back seat and you will remain in the present moment because it is your inner self that lives within you, not the faces that you have throughout the day. Your attitude will adjust itself. You just have to allow your mind to be clean of self-imposed hate, and eventually that will go away. Now, in terms of a routine to actually enjoy the process of hustling, make sure the media you're consuming is about something that you're striving to achieve while also being able to entertain you, because this is the most natural way to grow. Your close relationships should be seen as a challenge to how much positive energy you can give them independent of their behaviors. The universe will reward you for this. And finally, Your worries should be acknowledged instead of pushed aside, because you are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of those thoughts. This is the 0 Point Podcast, where all meaning is found within the pointless. This is Harvey Drayton speaking, and thanks for listening. And have a good day. We got gods around here walking with the jitters, and we got these damn religions trying to tell you a critter. We got reprogrammed to think that we just sinners. Go figure. Universal law's the highest bidder. Nigga, know yourself and just stay centered. Your Honor, I just have a couple questions. Objection. I give 2 receipts, so why you flexing? Fuck stars on the roof, astral projection. Universal truth, all is subjective. Reality. I just see the way she split the guard, it's duality. No way we support the system, that shit's a fallacy. No cause in the physical, I see side effects. The symbolism school us, but I don't see